Something's brewing. There we go.
We're live.
Yeah.
Welcome, everybody. I am live from the Innovate Summit with the one and only Brian Wallace.
I'm not sure the world needs more than one of me because I'm keeping everybody busy. Pleasure to be here with you, man.
Yeah, and I'm going to say this looks like a virtual background, but it's not. This is the view from the conference center. What's the conference center called again?
This is the Owensboro Convention Center.
Owensboro Convention Center. And I mean,
a gigantic building for the size of this city, which is a metro of maybe 80 to 100,000. It's also the big brother of, I think it's 10 or 11 or 12 counties around. So this is the show for a very, very large land area.
Yeah, it's a beautiful building. I mean, you come to the town here and, you're kind of expecting like small town vibe, and you kind of get some of that in the downtown. Is really cute. They've got these old buildings and, it's all really well maintained. But then all of a sudden you've got these really nice hotels and the convention center that's gorgeous. And so anyway, the point of talking about this is, and this live is to really highlight, innovate, and talk about what we're doing here. And
what are we doing here? It's Owensboro. Why are we here?
Why are we in Owensboro?
What are you doing here?
And so this is like a 3.5 hour drive from Cincinnati. And, I think the big question that people would have about this event is, why have an event in the middle of nowhere?
Well, we can't say the middle of nowhere here, folks, but we can say it to you. Just don't tell everybody walking around. Anyway, so we were brought in to help with economic development for Owensboro. So I didn't just throw a dart at a map. But even if I didn't have that story, if I discovered this on accident or on purpose, I think this is a wonderful place to do something, because it is wonderful beyond delight in an unexpected way. So everybody says the over deliver, under promise, right? So imagine that for, like we said, metro area, 80 to 100,000 people. The building that we're sitting in is probably a $25 million convention center.
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
Sitting on a brand new, dredged out, reclaimed $200 million waterfront. So if you look behind us, you've got a nice bridge. The other side of the Ohio River over here, which is in Indiana, is not even developed. So there's probably the next 20 years of economic development over there.
Amazing.
And right down the block, we've got waterworks that I think were modeled off of the Bellagio. You've got one of the largest, you can't quite see it from here, but way down there, just trust me, you can look it up online. It's like one of the largest children's parks in the world. You've got the International Bluegrass Hall of Fame,
huge.
And all these hotels around it, and they're still building some across the street. So this is a wonderful place that people have to be intentional and focused to cancel their week, because this is not the airport that you'd be flying into. You'd probably fly into Louisville or Nashville, and that's still probably an hour and 45 away. Like you said, Cincinnati is probably about 3.5, maybe 3.
Yeah, let me pause you, because here's what's really stuck out to me about this place, because I've been to events, and we're going to talk in a second about events and how a lot of them are garbage, and what's different about Innovate and why
we're not here to throw shade on anybody in particular, but globally speaking, a lot of them leave a lot to be desired.
So we'll get into that in a second. But one thing I want to mention about just the location here that I think is really profound is it's in the middle of, I'm kind of joking when I say it's in the middle of nowhere, kind of not, but it's
I
right.
say it a lot too.
It's actually right in the middle of a bunch of Midwestern hub cities. So you're in a great location in between St. Louis, Nashville, Louisville, Lexington, Cincinnati. So you got
Indianapolis.
Yeah. So you got all of these Midwest cities, and I just drove it not that long ago, Cincinnati to Nashville. It's a 5.5 hour drive. And then you're just connecting those two cities. So if you're going to be doing something where you want to be connecting Midwestern cities, and there's a lot of tech going on in the area. So, if you want to bring in Midwestern tech companies together, this is a better location really than any of those individual cities, because it's between all of them, and you could drive from any of those cities.
Sure can.
If you're coming from LA, is this the most convenient spot? No, but you just have a little
extra in LA
drive.
traffic. That's not much better.
But by the time you get home from the airport in LA, it might take you the same length of time. So I really appreciate that about here. And the other thing I'll say is, I've been to events in Vegas and those areas, and I hate it. Like I hate going to those cities. It's dirty. Like I much prefer being in the Midwest. That's part of why I live here. But
Sure.
then you get that same feel when you have a conference. Like, if you're going to bring your employees here, you're going to come into this area,
Right.
they're not going to be, you're not going to be encouraging them to go do something that's detrimental to them
Mhm.
on a personal level. And,
Absolutely.
it's going to end up impacting your business when you have 5,000 employees that are all converging in Vegas. Like, there's definitely going to be things that are going to happen that are
They're going to get
not going to be good.
distracted.
Yeah. It's not.
Stays in Vegas. And-
Whereas here,
yeah.
it's just the family feel much more.
Mhm.
I think it's much more conducive
Absolutely.
to doing something like that than these bigger cities. You're
Right.
going to spend a lot less money
Yeah.
bringing your people
And
out
it's
here.
not like the interior of the United States is hurting on any kind of economic development. There's so much stuff going on hidden in plain sight that you
Yeah.
don't hear about on mainstream media, and you don't hear about from some of the coastal stuff. That there's a lot of people that are from this greater region that don't necessarily appreciate going to New York, LA, San Francisco, Vegas, Miami for everything,
Yeah.
because there's plenty of amazing places to do it in their own relative backyards.
Yeah, I love it. So let's talk about events in particular. And I'm not trying to throw shade at any particular event.
Yeah.
We're just throwing shade at events.
No
overall.
naming names. We'll talk about that later.
when you go to an event,
Yep.
for most of us, the reason that we're coming is because we want to build relationships with people that are going to move our business forward, whether that's finding people that need our services and that we're going to be able to build a long-term partnership with them there, or you need to find a vendor that you can trust for something. You want to find somebody and, you're not looking to just find the cheapest option. You want to find somebody that you can really trust has your best interest at heart.
Right.
And it's hard to find that online, and you can, but at the same time, what do most of us do when we need something? We're going to go to our network. And so, I'll just kind of pause there and let you.
Sure. So kind of like what you said before about, well, why here? Okay, I already said, Owensboro brought us in for economic development, but how here is also an equally, if not more important question. So how do you get people to come here? On my say so, a little bit, yes. So I know a lot of
Brian
people
Wallace.
I know a lot of people on the internet, and I know a lot of people in person. So what's nice about here, as I said earlier in the keynote, it's small but mighty. It's not a giant crowd, but what's more impressive? 100, 200 people where you can instantly have value and trust. That's like a really good trusted circle of my connections.
Yeah.
Or 10, 12, 100,000 people where you're just lost in a zoo, where you're just having surface level conversations and you're not going deep. So the genesis, the nucleus of this is architected around a vouch system, if you will. So I know a lot of the people here. It's not a qualification to, it's not the Brian Wallace fan club or something, but I do know a lot of talented people, but not only talent, because talent by itself, you can be a monster, you could be talented, and there's plenty of sociopaths. None of them are here. They're not coming to this side of the river. So we're not throwing shade on Indiana either. I'm just saying they're not, we don't want that. But I believe that we want to have people that are generous, that are go-givers, like we were talking about Bob Berg earlier before. A person who is generous and community and socially minded that wants your benefit as opposed to them just having a paycheck using you like an ATM machine is going to be a much more trusted and valued connection. And like I said, these are very talented people that are among the world experts in all sorts of things, whether it's education, cyber, social, you name it.
AI,
we're here. AI,
people.
all sorts of stuff. So people that are just leading the leagues are coming to the city to give it a chance because I've been talking a good game about it. So let's see what Brian's about. So that is also, in addition to that, I want to say just a couple things about the whole concierge thing that you might have heard earlier. And if you guys didn't hear it before, we're going to say it now. So the Ritz-Carlton developed the 5-star Diamond Hospitality and Training School because they run a heck of a show. When Apple decided to go into retail, they said, let's go learn to be hospitality concierge people, not suck at retail like big box retail.
Yeah.
Because a lot of them just walk around, everybody doesn't really care. So we have probably a dozen or so people walking around that they are volunteering to be connectors. I think we call them connection conductors, where they're literally sitting down and meeting with people saying, tell me about who you are. Tell me about what you're trying to aspire to do, be who you want to meet. And then let's figure out 3 people that you should totally meet here and facilitate the connections.
I love that.
So many conferences, large, small, whatever. They care about all the fancy logos, all the fancy speakers, and your check to go there.
Yep.
And what do you get out of it?
Yeah. I mean, because
Drives me
ultimately
crazy.
they're trying to get a check. I remember
Yeah.
this one event, again, we'll leave it unnamed.
Where?
but
Yeah, no names.
We
Right.
sponsored this event one
Mhm.
year, and then they had their sales guy there who's just, his goal was to try to get me to sign up for the event again while I'm
Right.
there.
While
and it
you're
was
there.
clear that
Right.
like that was the point
That's the only
of the
thing.
event.
The only reason you're there is for more
Yeah,
money
it,
next
it
year.
wasn't like, hey,
Right.
how can we add more value? Let's make
Right.
sure you're getting everything you need out of this event.
Not
You know,
even
by
is
the
the
way,
first one good.
For next
Right.
year, like, hey,
Right.
here's some extra things that we could do to make this more valuable.
Yeah.
You know, it's nothing like that. It's just
Right.
hounding me. And then
Right.
the sales guy's like hounding me after we're done. And I'm
Right.
like, okay, I'm going to do everything I can.
Right.
Unless I have to, I'm not coming to your event
Right.
again.
This is such a
Because-
turnoff.
yeah,
It's like, why are
yeah.
you chasing? I'm already here. Why don't you say, how can you help me instead
Yeah.
of how can I take your check for next year?
Yeah. And I'll just say, being here
Wild.
so far now, I said this behind your back too. So I'm not just
Oh,
saying it to your
okay.
face.
All right. Do I cover my ears? I don't know
Actually,
where this is
it was
going.
kind of funny when
Yeah.
you were saying that, you know, it's kind of people knowing you in the vouch system. And I was like, it's kind of funny because the first question that everybody's pretty much asking is, so how do you know Brian?
Right. But
So-
that is one of my
So
friends
you're
over
right
here
about
said
that.
I'm an enigma, and I took it as a compliment. So I just travel around a lot of different, really interesting circles, and I gather a lot of very cool, valued friends.
Yeah.
That many of which I've never even met in real life before this event. People that I've known for 6 months, people that I've known for a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, that we're seeing each other for the first time.
I love it.
So there's a lot of energy that radiates out. So
I love it
part of
because when
is
you
a
build
halo of that.
relationships online, like through LinkedIn, because
Yeah.
I've seen this a lot,
Sure.
especially recently,
Oh,
where
yeah. We need it.
I call it meeting old friends for the first time, where you've
Well
built a
said.
relationship with
Yes,
somebody,
exactly.
you maybe interviewed them on a show, or
And then you're like,
or
oh, I didn't
talk to
realize
them.
you're that tall,
Yeah,
short,
yeah,
whatever.
exactly.
Right? It's all
Yeah.
awkward.
Definitely had a few of those. And then, yeah, you meet them in person and you're like, you feel like you know each other, but then you're
Because
like,
you
well,
do.
this is the first time that
Right.
we've ever met. And then
Right.
your connection goes way deeper.
Mhm.
You know, it's deeper than if you had known each other for the whole time, because you've been interfacing
Yeah.
online and making connections more regularly than people you know in your normal life. But then on the flip side,
Mm.
once you've met somebody online in person and you build that deep relationship in person, there's nothing that substitutes that face to face. So you're really getting that. But anyway, what I was,
Can I add something in there
Yeah.
really quick?
Yep.
I think it's worth saying, whether it's online, in person, or some kind of hybrid where you're sort of mixing all the things together, like you're doing right now.
Yeah.
Building intimacy, not creepy intimacy. Don't get the wrong idea, guys. We've got suits on. This is a clean show. But intimacy in the sense that you can scale a relationship faster than just talking about the weather or stuff for people that can't master the art of conversation is a massive skill to do online and especially in person, because we can look at each other in the face instead of worrying about tech troubles and all of that. So when you're able to do that and can bring it to places like this, it can be legendary.
Yeah,
and
I
I
love
didn't mean
it.
to cut you off, but I thought that.
well, yeah.
we
And I
needed
mean,
to
that's
say
a great segue, because what I was, I added that in. What I was
do it.
getting to, that I was saying behind your back, and I'll say it to your face, is that, you know, you're building these, we're meeting people who are awesome. Like you're saying, like they're experts in their field,
Right.
and you have this just super warm connection with them.
Right.
And, you know, everybody here, they're not looking to just pitch people and chase everybody down and try to close a deal. You know, obviously
They know that
we're all
business
here
will
for a
naturally
reason.
happen.
So like,
Right.
you know,
It's not a
obviously we
family
all want to
reunion.
have,
It is a little bit.
yeah,
But
we
yeah.
all want to have
Right.
opportunities or business that
Right.
would come out of
Exactly.
an event like this.
Mhm.
But people are genuinely looking to help each other or just get to know each other, see
Yeah.
if there's a connection that they could make. And that to me is what makes events valuable. It's like, how do you find people who you can trust, and how do you build that trust quickly so that either
It's
you
hard.
could work together,
Right.
or make intros to the right people, or make a connection. And I'll just say something that I think this event embodies something about you that I think is really valuable, and I want to be more like this when I grow up.
Grow up. Okay.
Just kidding.
Well, we're here.
No, I'm kidding. But something I want to grow in that you're great at is, I would call you a super connector.
Okay.
Like
sure.
you're
I've
one
been called worse.
you're one of
Yeah.
these people who you build relationships with people, and then you're not just going, how can I hold this relationship to myself and
Right.
like hold it in? It's
Right.
how can I, you have a conversation with somebody and you go, who does this person need to know
Exactly.
that I could connect them to?
Right.
And then pretty much everybody, if Brian makes an intro
Mhm.
and you know Brian,
Right.
you're going to get on a call with that person, and your level of trust with that person is going to be
Mhm.
10x than if you would have just hopped on a regular coffee call. And
Exactly.
that's a real valuable skill that you've developed over time.
Yeah,
And I
because
think that's
coffee chats by themselves are useless because everybody knows the cadence and flow. Hi, I'm going to waste 30 minutes of your time. I'm going to pitch you some crap, and then I'm going to pretend to listen to you pitching 30 minutes of your crap. And it's like, what are we even doing?
Yeah.
Can you just have coffee by yourself? Like, it's sort of a valueless I'm not saying that it's always bad, but I'm saying the format of it, we're sort of expected to fail, because how is that ever going to go well? How does that work?
Yeah.
Does that sound like a natural conversation? It does not. Yes, people drink coffee. Yes, we can have coffee, but the expectation, there's a book on behavioral psychology called Games People Play, where it's like, imagine you could look at the source code and cut through the BS of like what people are doing. So there's like a natural stroke of what I'm trying to do and what you're trying to do and how we're meeting each other. And it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or limited. It's a numbers game, I guess. But
yeah, and then this event, I'd say, is kind of an outflow. I'd almost say it's like an outflow of your personality and that gift, where it's kind of embodying that idea, where this is then a super connector event where I'm meeting people who are like, man, you need to know this person over here. Or, on the flip side, I'm meeting people for the first time and connecting with them, but I know like 50 people that they know that I've interacted with.
Correct.
Like there's a guy I was on a call with earlier that we're talking about working together. And then he's like, oh, you got to tell Thule I said hi. And then I'm talking to Thule and he's like, oh wow, you know him. That's awesome.
So that's already much further along in the relationship.
Yeah, in that trust game. Yeah, and we can start wrapping it up here, but this really plays into something I've been thinking a lot about and that I'm really working towards with when I'm talking with people about using LinkedIn. I think this kind of gets to the same idea where people think of social media a lot of times like a megaphone. Like, this is my opportunity to push myself and my ideas. And they do the same thing at events where it's like, okay, I'm going to go to this event and I'm going to try to scan as many badges as I can, or I'm going to try to give as many elevator pitches as I can. Whereas if you look at it as LinkedIn is a giant networking event where you can find and have conversations with people that can change your life and you can change their life. And when you treat it that way, where you go, what if I could have, think about LinkedIn as, what if I could have one meaningful conversation with somebody a day that's targeted, it's within this group of people that could, in theory, either do business with me or I could help them or whatever the case would be. If you do that one time a day, you're going to have so much more impact and so much more value than if you're just pumping out me focused content. You're putting your selfie on there and going out, doing that all the time. And I think with the events like this, I think this is kind of embodying that same idea where instead of everybody pitching each other all the time, it's like, how can I have as many valuable conversations that lead to opportunities as possible? And
well, I'll tell you, this is something that anybody can do. So the first thing you do is calm your impulse control that you think that social media has to be this megaphone amplification device, because the precept that's the axiom in my mind to fit this is like this. If you go to a rock concert, there's a hype man and he says, hey, everybody, make some noise. And I'm not the hype man, but that's my impression of him. And everybody seems to think that that's the way that you're supposed to operate. But who are you supposed to be there to see? The person who goes on next. And that signal versus noise ratio is completely flipped in the way that the world understands things. But the way things are actually built is the complete opposite. In the world full of noise, you make signal. So does it matter that there's 5 people here, 10 people here, 100, 1,000? It does not.
Yeah.
We are making a signal, being very focused and intentional with all this very high value, high trust, gracious, wonderful people, some of which I know better than others, but that's not the point. The point is that everybody's on the same page. It is basically a certainty that there's going to be all sorts of deal flow, joint ventures, partnerships, blah, blah, blah. The city can probably grow as a result. And this isn't me like beating my chest or saying I'm an egomaniac. I'm saying it's a formula for success because the complete antithesis of the guy chasing you down, not saying, how are you doing this year? Where's my money for next year? Yeah. It's the total opposite of that.
Totally agree. Well, I don't know. Any last words? Any other thoughts?
Oh, man. I have so many thoughts, but I think we're good.
Yeah. Well, thanks. Thank you so much, Brian, for jumping on with me. Really appreciate it. Thanks for putting on the event. Yeah.
You know it.
It's awesome. Love it. Well, yeah. Thanks for jumping on. And I'll be interviewing some other folks from here that I met. So definitely join us live here again shortly.